Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Quigley on Divorce, a behind-the-scenes look. I'm your host, James Quigley, and thanks for joining or listening with me today. So today's podcast is going to be a little bit different. I don't have a particular topic, but the purpose of my doing the podcast today is to talk about kind of what's going on right now as far as my practice, as far as what's happening, people coming out of COVID. If you're watching or listening to this when it's released, you'll see that things are looking positive and there's definitely change in the air. So that's great for all of us here in Chicago and across the country. This also sort of dovetails into a really interesting period in time in my career in that I'm going to write a book. And I have been ruminating over this book for years and years and years. I've encountered so many different experiences. I've met so many really, really wonderful people and have, through that process, just really realized that maybe even perhaps I don't do as good a job as I should in really explaining some of the nuance of what happens in a divorce. Part of what I try to do is with the podcast is deliver some of that behind the scenes analysis and understanding of what it is that we do. But I also understand that after doing this almost 30 years, there's a lot of things that are almost second nature to me. There's so many things in the law, the procedure that are just so mundane to me, but I realize at times that for my clients, this is their first time through this, hopefully their last. And a lot of what is second nature to me is very foreign to them. So as part of this podcast today, I'm going to invite anyone who's listening or watching this on video, that if you have a perspective as someone who's contemplating a divorce, someone who's in the middle of a divorce, or even someone who's come out of a divorce, that you think would be very informational for somebody else who might be in a similar circumstance to get your perspective, I would love for you to contact me. You can email me, you can direct message me on Instagram at quigleyondivorce. My email address is jmquigley@beermannlaw.com, BEERMANNLAW.com. Feel free to email me directly. I'd love to have any of your thoughts, questions, comments, anything that you think might be helpful in a divorce about a book that's going to deal with, from the very point of people thinking about a divorce to people in a divorce, the different phases of the process within the divorce, and then even coming out of a divorce. So I welcome your thoughts. I welcome your input. It would be invaluable to have that information combined with my experiences. I'm going to have former clients, experts. We're going to have a lot of great contributors that it is truly my hope that this is going to be, when it comes to fruition, something that's just a useful guide to anybody who's having to deal with divorce at any point in their life. The hope is that you could pick up any chapter, and that chapter might relate to exactly where you are in the process and give you some perspective. What I'm going to do is, I think, on a chapter by chapter basis, over the coming weeks, I'm going to do a podcast on each specific chapter. And my hope is that'll give you a little glimpse of what's to come in the book. And it'll give you some specific, information about that topic. In the electronic book form, you'll be able to hyperlink directly back to this podcast that I'm doing about each chapter. Just another way of getting a little more information. So really excited about that. And this is 2021, so we're doing it. I think one of the first chapters we're going to be talking about, and I'm not going to get too deep into this, is really dealing with the thought process that goes into making the decision to reach out to someone like me and consult with me and maybe even make the decision to divorce. And this is a process that, in my experience, it's not one that people arrive at without a great deal of consideration and thought. And sometimes years and years go into the process of saying, I need to end this marriage. I need to move forward in a positive way in my life. And so I want to speak to that because there are many, many people, especially right now. Many of you have maybe heard media reports that there's going to be a surge in divorces because people have been locked down and they've been, sort of in these bad situations, and they don't have really a way of getting out. We haven't had the freedoms we normally have enjoyed. And so as the cases have now, really dropped and things are starting to open up. I mean, even here in Chicago, which is very strict in its lockdown requirements, is starting to open up. I saw that we're going to have fans in the stands at Cubs games, and my wonderful daughter is going to be attending the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and there will be football games in Madison, my alma mater. So I'm very excited about that. But as these wonderful things start to happen again, and the weather gets great, and people start to resume their normal lives, there is this sense that people will be saying, I've been in this horrible situation. Some of what made it horrible was COVID. Some of it, what made it horrible was I'm in with my spouse, and it's abusive, and it's disrespectful. It could be a lot of negative things. And so, I really want to speak in my first chapter about that thought process and some of the things that I typically hear in terms of when people come to see me and what's held them back, whether it be, someone that's been the victim of abuse and how that has weighed on them physically and psychologically and emotionally, making it very, very difficult to just psychologically move forward. I've gotten into situations where many of you can imagine where there are children involved, and what parent wants to put their children through mom and dad getting divorced? I mean, that's devastating for children. And so that oftentimes holds people into bad marriages, bad relationships, the wrong thing for the right reason. So these are some of the things that I'm going to discuss and give some perspective on in terms of what I've experienced over the years, some of the things that I've heard, some of the things where I've had clients in terms of how they've worked up to this process. And some of the things along the way that, if you're not at that place where you're ready to end your marriage, then even better, and this book, when written, might actually be a great resource to help people from getting divorced, because it is a very, very tough process, economically, emotionally, on your family and children. It is a very, very difficult process. So I always tell clients, my job is not to tell anyone they should get divorced. In fact, I tell clients all the time, try to save your marriage. I met with someone today, and she's been in a difficult situation, but she and her husband are going to get counseling, and, God bless them. I really hope that things work out for them and their family. But it doesn't always work for everybody. And so where it doesn't, that's where I think you need to be educated. And that's really the whole impetus to this book. Is it's going to have real life experiences. It's going to have expert opinions. But on some level, it's also going to hopefully be able to be used as a manual to walk you through the process that sometimes, again, as divorce lawyers, even experienced divorce lawyers like myself, don't always maybe get down into the brass tacks of what people can expect. Sometimes it's a matter of time. In our business, lawyers bill on an hourly basis. And so the longer we spend perhaps explaining something that seems relatively mundane to us as lawyers, it's costing the clients more. But, that can't always be the reason, because sometimes just having the knowledge of what to expect is really powerful, to be prepared. And that's really, from our perspective, one of the things I always start from the beginning with: a strategy. You have to know what we're going to encounter. We have to know what we need to do. We always look to, where do you want to end up? What's the end game? And then let's reverse engineer back to the best way to get to that result we're trying to achieve. So this is really an exciting time for me. We are here at Beermann. We've been, as you might understand, considered an essential business. And so pretty much, through all of last year, we've been working. Our team has been working together. We've actually tried cases. I had one of my larger cases went to trial over 2 weeks, and it was on Zoom. It wasn't me in a courtroom. I think there were days where I may have had my suit and tie on, and I was wearing my gym shorts underneath. But it was a different experience. And so we are now looking forward to things even opening up more. I have a trial scheduled in May that's going to be in person, back in the courtroom, doing what I do as a trial lawyer, which is exciting for me. But we've evolved, and there's going to be the use of technology, and that's going to be woven into the book in terms of what role technology plays, even to the extent that today on this podcast, a year or two ago, I've been doing a podcast and I had microphones here and I would have had, a camera set up in our office. Now I'm sitting here in front of a laptop, and it's so much easier, and we're using Zoom technology. And so it's really just become a big part of our practice, being able to have trials, to have routine statuses, pretrial conferences, all of these things that I'm going to talk about in my book, all done over a computer. So I think there will be some blend of the use of technology as well as us getting back into court. And so these are things that just having a perspective and an understanding going into a process of divorce, or if you're in the middle of it and you're not understanding it, you're not getting that good advice, then hopefully, again, the book, when finished, is going to really be able to answer some of those questions that maybe get overlooked in an initial consultation or a meeting or a phone call with your lawyer. So I'm really excited. And again, I hope that you will take the liberality to give me your thoughts and your suggestions and any advice you have. I think the clients that I've asked to contribute to the book have wildly divergent experiences. And I think those very different experiences are invaluable, because where you sit as an individual thinking about the process, in the middle of the process, maybe having just come out of it, I think you will be able to connect with some of these experiences and get another person's perspective and understanding that could really be helpful to you. So again, I'm excited to move forward with the project. It's been a long time in the making. I've got a lot of stuff up here after almost 30 years, experiences, good, bad, and otherwise. I think we've had a really successful track record in advocating for our clients, the results that we get for our client. That's very important to me as a hyper-competitive individual. And I just think this is a really exciting time, because people are going to be looking for information. And I hope to really be able to deliver in a way that's meaningful and really can inform and educate. So any thoughts and comments you have, I welcome those again. But other than that, if you are in a position where it's the time of year or whatever it might be that things aren't working out, and you're looking to even just get advice, I'm happy to speak with people, consult. I've been doing that pretty much throughout COVID, where a lot of calls, and just kind of talking through things with folks and giving them a little sense of direction. So anything that I can do to help, don't ever hesitate to call. My direct extension at my office is 312-621-1225. We do have offices, and I keep an office in our North Shore office as well as downtown. And that number I gave is my direct extension. It rings to whichever office I'm in that given day. And I always try to make it a point to get back to people within that same day if possible. So anything I can do to help, please don't hesitate to call, email me. Any thoughts, comments, suggestions for my book, I really welcome that, and I'm super excited. So stay tuned. As I mentioned, what I'm going to do in the following, probably over a period of 8 weeks, is I'm going to do a podcast episode on each chapter of the book. So you'll get a little bit inside of what the chapter is going to be about, what my thoughts are, my comments and insight. Of course, it's going to be skeletal because it won't have the input of my clients and experts and so forth. But I think you'll find it enjoyable. I think you'll find it interesting. And I really hope that it's something that informs people and is really a helpful tool. So I appreciate you joining in, and stay tuned for not only the podcasts, chapter by chapter podcasts, but ultimately the book. I'm really, really excited about doing this. It's been sort of a passion in my mind for a long time. In this year of 2021, this is my year of doing things. I'm really advocating taking the first step. And so that's really the title of today's podcast episode is take that first step, whatever it is, whether it's with respect to your relationship, whether it's a bucket list. I just had a good friend of mine who was in California, and he went to see some migration of the whales, and he said this was on his bucket list. So he did it. And that's just awesome, and that's really, I'm really trying to deliver that message, and I'm trying to live that message myself. Get out and do something. Tomorrow is promised to no one. And, there's a lot of good things ahead of us. So make 2021 a great year. And I hope that it's off to a good start. And like I said, stay tuned. That book is coming. Thanks again for following. Again, James Quigley. This is Quigley on Divorce, behind the scenes look.